Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to really focus hard, boys, on your subject and agreements, and then we are focusing on and helping you understand what a compound subject and a compound predicate, your simple predicate and your simple subject, okay? And they're going to be compounds. And so we're really going to dive in and discuss that. All right, so now is what I did is I put together a bunch of sentences. I was at fire training with my husband, and he was at fire training, and I was here putting lessons together for the boys. I was just looking around the room and trying to figure out what to write. Also, right here, I put every single one of these sentences where it breaks right here and up. I put all of these sentences. What are they starting with? Prepositional phrases. So we are doing prepositional phrase sentences. So they're going to begin with prepositional phrases, okay? And so we've talked about in the other lessons how important it is to change things up. Now remember, if you're doing a prepositional phrase and it's 4 words or less, do you need a comma? You don't. Unless you really feel like you need to force that comma, then you don't need a comma. You're not supposed to have one. So now we're going to really focus on, and I want you guys to tell me what are the actual verb that you need to be using in this sentence. So above the desk, the TV was or were playing training videos. So now, this is going to sit right here in the progressive tense, and you're going to choose the past tense auxiliary verb to sit with your progressive tense to match with your subject. So we know what the verbs are basically, because I have parentheses around the verbs. Do you have a question?
Is it was?
Yeah. So we know what the verb is. So your very first thing you need to do, now that you see the verb, what do you need to look for?
TV.
The subject.
Yeah,
which is TV. You have to look for your subject. And then you need to decide, is it singular or plural? Okay, so is TV singular or plural?
It's singular.
It is singular, so which one's the singular verb? Was. So the TV was. That's was playing. What tense does this put you in?
Past.
The past progressive. So this is the past progressive. Okay, so against the desk, the TVs was or were playing training videos.
Were.
Nice. Were. Because why?
Because TVs.
TVs is plural. TV is a big word, so I just abbreviated it. At the desk, the TV is or are playing training videos.
Is.
Okay, so because TV is singular. Before the desk is or are tables with a sign-in sheet. This one's a little bit trickier. Once you get the word correct, you'll figure it out.
With is the verb.
No, with is a prepositional phrase. With a sign-in sheet. Those are prepositional phrases. And this is a prepositional phrase. So guess what? You only have 2 extra things. One's the subject and one's the verb. What's your subject?
Desk.
The tables. No, because see, look, this is the prepositional phrase.
Yeah.
So what's your subject?
Tables.
Tables. This is your subject. What's your verb? Are or is. So since you know that the tables is plural, you know you're going to choose the plural verb. So that's why this one was a little bit more confusing, because look, the subject is coming after the verb.
Between the tables is or are vendors.
Okay, so between the tables is or are vendors. What's your...
Are.
Okay, Okay, why? Paul's going to choose are. What's your subject? Tables is not your subject. This is a prepositional phrase. Vendors is your subject, so you have to look at this plural part right here, not this plural part.
Well, I just picked art because it makes sense.
So, yeah, because you can't say between the tables is vendors. Are vendors, okay?
During the training, the firemen is or are having lunch at Wendy's.
Your verbs. Is having or are having. So, Paul said is, so what is your subject?
Firemen.
Fireman is your subject. So what is this? Singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural. So you have to take the, what kind of verb?
Are.
The plural verb.
Oh, what? How is it?
During the training, the firemen are having lunch at Wendy's. So inside the training building, the vendors is or are selling their product to the firemen.
Are.
So what's your subject? The vendors. The vendors are your subject. Okay, so look, since vendors is plural, what are you going to take? Is or are? Since are. Okay, so outside of the training building, the firemen is or are dragging large water hoses. Okay, so we have our verb. And this is sitting in the progressive tense, so we're going to use these auxiliary verbs, right? And it tells us which, if it's singular or plural, or if it's past, present, or future. That's what auxiliary verbs do. And what is your subject, Paul?
Building. No fireman.
Yeah, we're talking about the firemen because outside of the training building, ooh, you know what? This needs to have a comma right there because look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Outside of the training building, comma, the fireman who is doing the dragging of the water hoses. It's the firemen. So this is singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural. So which verb are you going to use? You're going to use your plural verb are. And this is sitting in the present tense. So over the building, the smoke was or were swirling into the air. So look, we are sitting in the past progressive tense, and we need to find the subject. What's your subject?
Smoke.
Smoke. We're talking about the smoke. The smoke is the one swirling, right? So which one are we doing? Was or were?
Was.
What? Was, because look, we don't have smokes. So this is singular. You need to choose the singular verb. So this is why it's important for you to memorize which verbs are singular, which verbs are plural, which verbs are present, which verbs are past, which verbs put you in the future. You need to have those memorized because once you have those memorized, boys, this is a piece of cake, right? So upon the fire truck, Richard was or were pulling down the ladder. So we're sitting in our, okay, why? We're sitting in our progressive tense. We're using the past tense right here in the progressive. Is progressive past what? What's your subject?
Was because Richard is singular.
So Richard is singular, so we're using the singular past tense auxiliary verb of was. And your compound subjects and your verbs. Now, that means it's going to be the simple subject and your simple verbs. So compound means that you can have 2 or more subjects or 2 or more verbs, and they have to match up with the subjects. The verbs have to match up with the subjects, and the subjects have to match up with the verbs. Doesn't matter how many you have, they just mean that you have 2 or more. That's all it means. So, but they must belong to the same subjects and verbs. They have to belong together. And your adjectives, they modify. That means they describe the qualities, ideas, and places. The verb says what it is doing. Now, we talked about stative verbs, right? and they kind of just, you can't see them doing something. But you can still figure out your verb by asking the question, what is it doing? And you can find your verb with that question with a stative verb. So still, the verb says what it is doing. Also, we're going to go into and understand interjections a little bit better. So an interjection, ject, remember, do you guys remember what ject means? Throw. So ject means to throw, and inter means between. So if you think about an interjection, you're throwing words in between your sentences, and it's an interruption. Rupt means to, remember, blow up, right? And inter means between. So that's interjection means an interruption. Like, wow, and it could be negative. It could be when you're mad or angry or happy or excited. It could mean lots of different things. Like, wow. You see? And they stand by themselves. And a lot of them come with exclamation points. Okay? Wow. Oof. Oh, that hurt. Oof. Ouch. Okay, a compound predicate. I just did a bunch of sentences so you can see what the difference is. I am waiting and working on a lesson while Richard is in fire school. Now, we are really focusing on our predicate. That means your simple predicate. So find that. What's your simple predicate in this sentence? And let's focus on your independent clause. So we have our dependent clause right here. And so you're right, Daniel. We have waiting and working. And then right here, what tense is it sitting in? Do you guys know?
Present progressive.
Present progressive. This auxiliary verb says I'm in the present, and these right here says I'm progressive. Your INGs tell you you're progressive. So this is a compound predicate, waiting and working, and your auxiliary verb is the same thing. I am waiting, I am working. This auxiliary verb is helping both of these words, and this puts it as a compound predicate because you have two right here. Okay, now Richard participated in class and went to lunch with the guys. That's what he did. I got a lot done. So anyways, I wasn't with him with this one. He did take me to lunch the next day. All right, so what's your verbs? Richard participated in class and went to lunch. Participated, that is one of your simple predicates.
Went.
And went. So oftentimes you can find them when you have your coordinating conjunction right there. And I will abbreviate to keep space. I will abbreviate your ands. I didn't in this one, but this is the same symbol as and, so you guys can use those. You shouldn't if you're writing for something though. You should spell it out. So these are Richard participated and Richard went. Okay, those are your simple predicates. So Richard participated in class is describing participated, and to lunch is describing went. Okay, and with the guys is describing lunch. I work on lessons and talk to my sister while Richard is gone. So we are putting this in the simple tense. And what are your simple tense words in this sentence? And what is your dependent clause? If you can find your dependent. Yeah, so this is your dependent clause. So let's look, and you can obviously have compound predicates in your dependent clause. All right. Where's your verbs? Where's your compound verbs?
Work and talk.
Right. So work and talk. They are describing the subject I. I work, I talk. And then you have prepositional phrases right here describing these verbs right here.
Because
the building made me shiver and move often because it was cold, and it was cold. So what are your compound predicates right there, your simple predicates.
Shiver.
Made and
Nice. Made and move. Okay, so the building, so the subject is the building, it made me and I moved also, right? Richard took me to lunch and said goodbye as he went to his next class. What is your compound predicate in that sentence?
took and said.
Took, he took, and he said. So, see how this said, if you can say, Richard took me to lunch, and it goes well, then you know that this verb belongs to that subject. If you can say, Richard said goodbye, and it goes well, you know that you have a compound predicate. And because both of these verbs belong to that one subject. That one simple subject. I peeled and ate oranges while I studied. What's your verb? What's your compound verb in there? What's your compound predicate? Your simple predicate in this sentence.
Peeled and ate.
Okay, so now we have peeled and ate. I peeled, I ate. So see how these simple predicates, they belong to I. I is the one that peeled them, and I am the one that ate them. We are going to focus on your compound subjects. These were compound predicates. Now let's do compound subject. My hot cocoa and water cups are empty. So what are your compound subjects?
Hot cocoa and
water.
And
Water
oops.
cups. Oh,
Cups. So, well, and I would almost say water cups right there.
No, because water is describing cups.
You're right, it is, but hot cocoa is describing cups too.
No.
Maybe you should say cups and mugs. Maybe that's what we should do. The hot cocoa and water cups and mugs are empty. So we need the plural on there. See, there's only one verb that we're talking about right here, right? Okay, so now the water and the Gatorade are on the counter, which they were. What are your compound subjects there?
Water.
Yeah, the water and the great Gatorade, they are. This is plural, so you're taking the plural verb. But see, look, there's two things that they're talking about, and this is agreeing with this verb. Plural, plural takes plural. Okay, the wives and daughters help with the food at fire school. Okay, what's your verb? So help, and so what's your compound subject?
Wives and daughters.
So wives and daughters. So wives, daughters, here is your coordinating conjunction. These two are your compound subjects, and it's relating to the word help. This is taking the plural, okay? The plural verb. Even though it looks singular, it's plural, right? My arms and legs are so cold that I cannot work, which was so true. What are your compound subjects?
Arms and legs.
Arms and legs goes to this plural verb. Okay? So the firewomen and firemen are working to protect others. What are your compound subjects?
Women and men.
Firewomen and firemen are your compound subjects. They go and they agree with this plural verb right here. Okay, oops.
Two verbs.
This plural, this is an auxiliary verb right here, and it's connecting to working. They are working. Now remember, compound subjects, that means there's two or more things they're talking about that's relating to the one verb. It's this verb is working with, they have to match, they have to go together, they have to agree. So now we talked about just your compound subjects and just your compound predicates. But now we're putting them together, and we're finding how your compound predicates and your compound subjects go together, even though you have more than one. The drones for the fire department and drones pilot flight skills classes looked easy, but were technical. So we're just going to talk about our compound subjects and our compound verbs. What are your compound verbs?
Were.
Looked and were. Okay, so now, and then your subjects are this class and this class. These are classes that they took, right? Those two things. So you need to find they need to match, okay? And they need to be plural. Plural makes plural right here, okay? So these two verbs go with these two subjects. The brush truck and ladder truck are being driven and worked with during class. Okay, so what are your compound predicates in here?
Are being.
Listen.
Oh, nice. Are being driven and worked, right? So remember, we're staying in past tense. Or what's your simple subject?
Bush truck.
The brush truck and
Ladder truck.
the ladder truck. See, we have a coordinating conjunction connecting these. So you know there's going to be two, so you know that you're going to have to make sure your verbs are plural. This is the plural verb. This is the plural verb. Richard and Daniel listened and took notes about electric vehicles. What is your compound simple predicate?
Listened and took notes.
Nice. Listened and took. Okay, so now who listened and who took? Richard and Daniel. See, we have our coordinating conjunctions, and both of these verbs, these simple predicates, belong to both of these subjects. Fire attack and retreat require crawling on the floor and repelling from windows. What is your compound simple predicate? Okay, crawling. Repelling. Okay, so there is your coordinating conjunction. And what is your compound simple subject? Yeah, the attack and the retreat. So now look at this. Is repelling doing fire attack and retreat? Yes. Is the crawling doing the fire attack and retreat? Yes, both of these are doing both of your simple predicates are doing both of your simple subjects. Okay? Okay, firewomen and firemen complement each other and learn invaluable information from each other. Your compound simple predicate in this sentence. Learn
And complement.
Complement. There is your coordinating conjunction, and who complements and learns from each other? Firewomen and firemen. Here, see, they're both. Firewomen are complementing and learning, and firemen are complementing and learning. So these both, they go with each other. They're in agreement. They work. Firewomen are doing that, and firemen are doing that. Are you guys seeing that? Okay, so now I want to talk about what is the word of?
It's a preposition.
Nice, thank you, Daniel. This is a preposition. So a box of apples. Of apples is your prepositional phrase, right? It's really hard to start a sentence with of. You have to have a word that it's going to describe. So remember how we started all of those prepositions earlier in the lesson? You can't, I'm sure somebody that's crazy good at writing, but it's very, very difficult to write with the word of and start a sentence with it. So we had one that was outside of the training room, but we can't say of the training room. You have to have a word that it's actually describing. So don't try to really start them with the word of. So box of apples. box of peaches, box of notes, box of chicks. So see how you can use the same and then change them up. These are the nouns that go with of. And then of apples is describing box. Of peaches is describing box. Of notes is describing box. Of chicks is describing box. You have to have a word here for this to describe. Glass of water, glass of milk, glass of juice, glass of flowers. So, what is of water describing?
Glass.
The glass.
Whoops.
What is of milk describing?
Glass.
Glass. What is of juice describing?
Glass.
So remember, when you're using of as a prepositional phrase, so of can be a subordinating conjunction, so they can be a tad bit confusing. I was doing these all different colors, and then next thing you know, I did them all in pink. So, school of fish. Of fish is describing school. School of children, school of thought, school of tech. What is of children describing?
School.
The school. It has to have a word that it is describing. What is of thought describing?
School.
Of tech describing school. So now you have nest of mice, nest of birds, nest of squirrels, nest of rabbits. Time of day, time of the hour, time of the month. Okay, so now look, son of Lisa. What is of Lisa describing?
Son.
Son. Son of Richard.
Son.
You're describing son. Son of Daniel, son of Paul. But anyways, I hope that helped you to see how you can put multiple subjects and multiple verbs together to work together in a sentence and how to find them. See you in the next lesson.
Thanks for watching.
Bye everybody.